It's that time. Quick takes. Let's get it, gentlemen. Up first, Stephen A., what's your reaction to the Paul George incident with Gerald Henderson?
I think Gerald Henderson should be suspended a minimum of 5 games. That was an intentional shot, and then he walked away like it was nobody's business. You can't do the stuff that he did. You just can't do it. I think he should be suspended for a few games with that elbow to the throat.
Stephen A. putting the smackdown. Max, Jared Goff says he thinks the Rams are closer to being good than some people think. Are they?
How would he know what close is? Didn't get close in college or now in the pros. One of the reasons they're far away is because their quarterback, the #1 overall pick in the draft, they mortgaged the future for, hasn't produced.
Stephen A., Josh Gordon suggests on Snapchat that he is D-O-N-E in Cleveland. Would you take a chance on him?
Well, I would take a chance on him, but I would make sure that the risks are very little because the best ability is availability. And because of his inability to stay off the weed, I'm not so sure. I'm not spending it. I'll give him a chance, but I ain't taking too much of a risk.
I'll take him.
All right. Max, Joe Girardi announced that the Yankees will be without stud catcher Gary Sanchez for 4 weeks because of a bicep injury. You scared?
Now, listen, as Jack Curry, I think it was on Yes Network, said yesterday, when you saw the swing the first time, you're thinking, is he gone for the season? Only 4 weeks? This guy might already be the best or one of the 3 or 4 best catchers in baseball. Here come the Yankees when he gets healthy.
That'll do it, fellas. Thank you kindly. Up next, Brian Windhorst will join us to break down how big of a threat the Celtics are. We made time. That's good. Now that they control their own destiny when it comes to the #1 seed in the playoffs. Plus, did DeMarcus Cousins throw some shade at Lonzo Ball? Boogie does not seem to be a fan of LeVar's son. We'll check out what he said to TMZ a little later in the show.
Hey, everybody. This is Miles Brown. Don't forget to stay tuned on my personal favorite show, First Take. Stephen A., I'm coming for you. I'm ready, all right? I'm ready.
The Cavs can't wait for the regular season to end. They're now 1 game behind the Celtics for the top seed in the Eastern Conference with 1 to play after dropping 3 straight. They don't seem too worried as Cleveland has already decided that LeBron will not play in their final game. On that note, we welcome someone very familiar with this subject, one Brian Windhorst, kind enough to join us with some very interesting revelations on this team in his new book, Return of the King. Pick that up, out hot off the press. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Always glad to be here.
Why couldn't you pick an interesting, relevant topic? Oh, LeBron James coming back to win the final?
It's a great time for the Cavs. They're flying high, no problems, no worries whatsoever.
Exactly.
Good timing.
We're going to get into your book in just a minute, but first I want to get your thoughts on this story. So, this author, Marcus Thompson, wrote this book, The Miraculous Rise of Steph Curry, and he was on Jason McIntyre's radio show, and essentially he had said that LeBron and everybody on the Clippers took issue with Steph Curry's quick rise to stardom. What are you hearing about that?
I don't know where Marcus got that. Maybe that's 100% true. Here's what I know about LeBron and Steph. Here's how, in my belief, how LeBron feels about Steph. LeBron doesn't believe he has a rival in the NBA today. His last rival, who was his peer, was Kobe. Kobe is no longer in the NBA. LeBron looks at his rival as Jordan. He has said as much, that he is chasing a ghost, essentially. He has respect for Steph, but he does not have a close relationship with him. So, you know, there's different levels of respect in the NBA. Anybody who's around the players understands that. There's a secondary issue with Steph and LeBron that comes down to the biggest rivalry in pro sports. It's a rivalry that we don't ever talk about, but it's the biggest rivalry, and that is the shoe game. Curry is a rival not just with the Warriors, but he is a rival with Under Armour. That is a major factor.
Not if he doesn't start making better-looking shoes, but go ahead.
His sales are down this year, but shoe sales in general have not been great, even for Nike. So that is an issue. Like last year, there was 2 games going on. There was Cavs-Warriors, which was very intense. We all were there. We were all watching it, all very involved in it. And there was Nike versus Under Armour. Under Armour, over the last 5-6 years, has had a rise in the game, and Steph Curry has been the face of that rise. Under Armour stole Steph from Nike in what's now become a high-profile story where Nike just let him go, failed to match. It's a huge success story. Steph is very popular. Just today, the NBA releasing the jersey figure. Steph ranked as the #1 selling jersey over LeBron for the 2nd straight year. Steph is a force. That is an issue. When LeBron wants to beat Steph, yeah, he wants the gold trophy, but I'm telling you, there were Nike executives in the Cavs locker room with the champagne last year. And when Kevin Durant went there, that was also a victory for Nike.
Let me say this to add to what Brian just said. One of the things, Max, that we need to understand is that, again, to know Steph is a class dude, and Steph is a good guy. He's the babyface assassin. But as I explained on this morning's Sports Center, Brian, and please feel free to comment about this, what you have is a situation where when you have stars, Max, that elevated themselves to a championship level, what they take into consideration in terms of the level of affection they may have towards a contemporary, even if it's not deemed a rivalry, is whether or not you had to go through that same terrain, that same minefield, that same level of adversity in order to garner the respect that you receive. One of the things that people had a problem with as it pertained to Steph, it wasn't a problem with Steph the man, the individual, the basketball player. It's the fact that he was the babyface assassin. And when you saw him being the babyface assassin, you always saw, him with his wife. You saw him with his kids. You saw him with his dad and his beautiful mom and all of this other stuff. And he seemed to be an untouchable figure when it came to scrutiny. If you are a LeBron James or anyone else for that matter, and you've endured the level of scrutiny that normally was accorded to those climbing that ladder towards greatness. Kobe wasn't immune to it. Magic wasn't immune to it. Isaiah Thomas wasn't immune to it. Maybe Dr. J was to some degree, but a lot of others were not immune to that. They were all exposed to it. And when somebody like Steph Curry comes along and he doesn't seem to be getting that level of scrutiny, then people view it as him getting a pass. So even though it's not anything against him, you sort of find yourself resentful towards it because he's experiencing a quote-unquote honeymoon that none of the other guys were accorded, and that's what they have a problem
with. And LeBron doesn't have a rival, although it looked like Steph was for a minute, and LeBron took care of that in the finals. Guys like Chris Paul really shouldn't comment on Steph in that way because he's never been out of the first round of never been out of the second round of the playoffs. Steph has been to consecutive finals, consecutive MVPs, all those things. But I would say that generally there's the honeymoon phase. We like to build them up. South Park had an episode about this, right? And then we like to tear them down and see if they can bounce back. And maybe Steph just hasn't reached that place yet. But Brian, I have a question for you about LeBron as it relates to Steph. Seems to me that there was something going on there where if he felt like it wasn't really going to be a rival, then why did he feel the need to psychologically dominate Steph in last year's finals, which I think he certainly did, screaming on him after blocking his shot, trying to take his heart, which I think showed up in Game 7. If that's not a threat, why treat it that way?
Oh, I think he's a threat, without a doubt. But LeBron wouldn't admit him as a rival. I know that for a fact. And maybe that'll change in 5 years. Maybe it'll change in 1 year. But I think Stephen A. was very eloquently accurate. I have gotten the feel from LeBron at times that Steph gets away with things that LeBron would never, quote-unquote, get away with. In other words, LeBron receives criticism, even now, even when they're both at the top, that if Steph did something, he sort of gets away with it, where if LeBron did it, we would be all over our network. But I will say this, Steph has had adversity. He may not have had traditional adversity with his background like some of the star players today. But those ankle injuries threatened to destroy his career. So
why he doesn't get much money compared to the top paid guys.
Right. That's about to be corrected. But he's gone through some stuff that isn't traditional but still is relevant.
You're right about that, but injuries are an entirely different form of adversity because you have a physical ailment that hobbles you. LeBron was healthy. LeBron wasn't injured. LeBron, before he was a champion, we were holding him accountable in ways, dare I say, we still haven't held Kevin Durant accountable, considering his level of greatness and the fact that he hasn't been called to the carpet for being devoid of a championship. As a matter of fact, LeBron has helped him immensely. And now the elevation of the Golden State Warriors has helped them immensely because we haven't paid that much attention up until the last year as to why Kevin Durant is devoid of a championship. But when you talk about Steph Curry's injury, yeah, that's a form of personal adversity, but it's not something he was held accountable for because if you got bad ankles, what are you supposed to do about that?
Before we let you go, some interesting revelations I'm being told in this new book. Tell us about it.
I think probably the most interesting story that maybe never gets told or doesn't get told for 15 years if the Cavs don't win is what happened in Game 7, not on the court, but in the halftime locker room. As you remember, Warriors are up by 7. Draymond Green is headed towards the Finals MVP. He's hitting everything. LeBron's guarding him. he's getting scored on. And you know, even though LeBron's leading the Cavs in rebounds, assists, points, Ty Lue goes to LeBron in halftime and says, "You got to be better." And LeBron's like, "What do you mean I got to be better?" And this profane argument breaks out. People who have known LeBron for years who were there have never seen anybody speak to LeBron the way that Ty Lue spoke to him at halftime. And LeBron basically says some really bad language and walks out. He's the first guy on the court because he's so angry at Ty Lue. 2 hours later, LeBron's in the huddle before the shot that Kyrie Irving makes, and he's making the suggestion with Ty Lue in concert, let's set this play up for Kyrie. So these stories that are told within that we were able to get access to, frankly, because the Cavs won and it's now a part of history, are in this book that no one's ever told before.
You lucked up on the timing of this
Love
book.
it. Real spin.
I'm telling you, I could write 10 more books. I'll never get the cooperation like I did for this because I got to tell them on the last page, you guys are going to win. And they do. They win on the last page. Sorry to give it away.
Can't wait. Looking forward to reading it. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Great job, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Coming up, DeMarcus Cousins told TMZ had never heard of Lonzo Ball. Was he being shady thanks to LeVar's antics? Plus, the Patriots are projected to have a pretty easy schedule again next season. Has playing in the AFC East for so long helped to extend Tom Brady's career? We'll discuss that. And Max has final take, and he's taking on Romo and the Dallas Mavericks. Stay tuned for all that good stuff.